Have y'all ever had like a paranormal experience while on a tour?
One, I was in Antoine's restaurant, and we used to go in there giving a cocktail tour. There was a lady that kind of was wandering away from me starting down the hallway. And I'm thinking, I'm responsible for this person. Hey, I need you to come back by me. But as we were starting to cross the threshold then with the group, she kind of pulls me aside and she said, Is this haunted? I gave her the standard, well, it's New Orleans, every place is haunted answer. And she said, oh, okay, because I feel a male presence walking back and forth up there, and he's wearing a uniform. So about a year goes by, and I'm in the 1840s room on a different cocktail tour, and I'm telling about Antoine Elsator and the invention of oysters Rockefeller, and another woman kind of wanders away from me.
Hello, everyone, and my name is Misti Gaither, and welcome back to Quest, a journey into true crime and the paranormal. And I am here with a New Orleans Secrets, yes, with a S, because a place like New Orleans has to have more than one secret, right? And as you know, New Orleans is always the hub of secrets and craziness and wildness. And what better than to invite y'all to come and tell us some stories about, you know, what kind of tours that y'all have and different things that y'all offer, and ghost tours, and with a little bit of true crime elements thrown in. So welcome to the show. Now we have Mark and Angela,
Hello.
the owners, and we have Ty, who specializes in the ghost tour. I wanted to talk to y'all because, we all know the stories about New Orleans. A lot of the same ones are like front and center, such as like the Lalaurie Mansion, such as Marie Laveau, just different ones, the Axeman, the ones that just are real prevalent. And so is there any one that maybe that y'all do that is not talked about a lot, but is still interesting and that y'all kind of bring out?
Well, I've already thrown to Ty because
There we go, Ty, and back to Ty.
I think I'll field this one, Mark.
Okay.
well, the reason I'm saying because I think one of the lesser known discussed stories in the quarter is, of course, the upstairs lounge fire, and that being a true crime story itself. I think is it's a big deal in New Orleans, and I think it's also a bigger deal because Ty gives a specific tour that centers, I guess, in the LGBTQ community, and I think it's an important one.
Yeah, the upstairs lounge fire. That was a fire on June 24th, 1973, in a New Orleans gay bar called the Upstairs Lounge. Ultimately, as a result of the fire, 32 people die. It is very quickly, by the fire department, determined to be arson, which makes it the deadliest arson in all of New Orleans history. Period. It's a very important story, and when I talk about it on the given tour, one of the angles I take with it is very much putting it in sort of its what you might think of as like sort of the narrative context of when it comes to the LGBT community in New Orleans and that history to it. Technically speaking, the crime has never been officially solved. There are a few leads, some of them stronger than others. Generally speaking, it's assumed the strongest lead is that it was actually a regular at the bar who, just to avoid getting too into the weeds with it, was earlier asked after a fair amount of drinking and some generally poor decisions, which, who among us in a New Orleans bar, but is asked to leave, takes it very poorly. Man's name was Roger Nunez, and as would be reported later, he would often say he didn't want to hurt anyone. He just wanted to, the way he put it, was to scare them. And there was kind of just a confluence of factors that ended up working perfectly, that the fire ended up growing way beyond what he would have expected. And so tragically, within even just shortly after the 1-year anniversary of the fire itself, Roger Nunez commits suicide. Presumably out of guilt for the fire, and so because of this, technically speaking, we kind of can never now solve the fire in like a true, full way. Another one that I thought of right off the bat, though, especially in regards to the ghost stories, it's one that a few years ago I noticed was being told a lot. But I've noticed now it's told a bit less and less. And some of that I think is just because different stories at different times sort of fall in and out of like favor, just as sort of just ebbing and flowing for no particular reason. But it's one of my favorites, actually. It's one that's sort of referred to in the trade, if you will, as the Singing Rain. Are you familiar with the
I think so.
story? Yeah, it is. It's over in Père Antoine Alley, which is that is the downriver alley side of the St. Louis Cathedral. And again, not bog down all the runtime here with the full detailed story. It takes place the main thrust of it takes place in the 18th century when in the early 1760s France gives New Orleans over to Spain. The initial settlers of New Orleans are not a big fan of this, especially when the new Spanish governor in 1765, the worst thing he does that they consider is he imposes a massive import tax on French wine. And the French people living in New Orleans at the time decide they are not going to, by their point of view, debase themselves by drinking Spanish wine. So rebellion, he leaves. In 1769, the new governor comes in, isn't going to mess around, ends up executing the 6 leaders, puts their bodies on display for several days. Then a big storm rolls in, most likely a hurricane, and the Spanish forces leave. They don't worry about guarding the bodies during the hurricane. And the local priest, Father Dagobert, instead cuts their bodies down and prepares them. The families come to the alley. They lead. They bring the caskets along the way. But the ghost part of it is that, so what has been said is that night it's so dark, it's the middle of the night, and the air is so thick with wind and rain that the back of the line cannot see the front. So to guide them through it, Father Dagobert sings the Kyrie, the Catholic Mass for the dead, and gets them all the way to what would have been the first cemetery of New Orleans, buries them all, and they say that now, if it is nighttime and it's raining, big heavy rain kind of thing, but that you can actually hear Father Dagobert singing. And I like that because I think it's a cool story. It's got so many cool little political intrigue elements. It's also this like cool moment of like bravery and like looking out for your community. And then also it's just such as far as a haunting goes, it's got such a like specific little recipe to re-encounter it. Not only is there a specific place, but you also have a specific time and weather conditions that have to be met.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's kind of go back to the upstairs lounge. And I was wanting to ask you, now on your tour, do y'all just, are y'all outside of the site, or do y'all get to go upstairs to the actual lounge where it happened?
So unfortunately, we're not able to go upstairs. It's largely, because still at this point even, it's largely still locked off. It's used now as just kind of storage for one of the other businesses that operates in that building. But so I actually talk about that fire at a different location, just something regarding for the one of the events that occurs in the aftermath that personally in a lot of my research I consider kind of the real like linchpin of the story. But I have had several colleagues who have been able to go into that particular space on multiple levels. They have all talked about the energy within there being very overpowering.
It really is. I've got to go. And what really, the very first thing what happens is when you open the doors and you can still see the charred marks around up on the ceiling and everywhere. The feeling is it's very heavy. It's a lot going up there. I mean, we could probably do a whole entire show just on the upstairs lounge because it's so, like you said, it has the true crime element. It has the paranormal aspect of it too. A lot of people don't like to, I think of that part, but it's hand in hand with what's going on there at the upstairs lounge. So tell me, what got into y'all about to start a tour company?
I guess, gosh, Angela and I loved going out. This was, years ago. We would go out and go into the French Quarter and just enjoy it, and we would adopt tourists. And by that I mean we would go to bars and just start striking up a conversation with another couple, and then after a few minutes we've adopted them, and we go to another place and another place and another place, and then all of a sudden we realized, you know what, we could give tours like this. And we thought, we could do food tours. I came up with the idea of a food tour. Well, it's an old idea, but I thought I created this concept. And so that's what we started doing. We took classes at Delgado, got certified as tour guides, and we just started doing it on our own for a little while, and then just started growing more and more and more.
Well, I think it's really cool how that you took something like you just, like, oh, let's just hang out, and you meet and something that you love and that you enjoy and you get to meet other people and then you get to do what you love and just, I could do a food tour. I can do a pub crawl type tour, ghost, true crime, whatever that it is. And so you also, in the midst of all this that it takes to running a business and starting business and everything, y'all also have written a book called Secret New Orleans, A Guide to the Weird, Wonderful, and Obscure.
Yep. With our other partner, James.
Okay.
Our business partner, James, Angela, and myself wrote it. It's a whole bunch of different vignettes of different secrets, lesser known things in New Orleans. Like, my favorite is always, why is the airport code MSY? It's like,
Good question.
What a strange thing. It doesn't say anything about the Louis Armstrong Airport.
Right.
But it doesn't stand for that. Years ago, it was the Moisant International Airport. But that still doesn't explain the SY. Why is it MSY? It doesn't make any sense. So it all goes back to Moisant crashing in Kenner, where there were stockyards. And so they called it the Moisant Stockyards.
Oh,
MSY.
okay.
Yeah. So little things like that.
I learned something new today.
Yeah,
Check
yeah.
that out.
Oh, it's chock full of that stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, if you like the weird, the wonderful, and obscure like I do, then be sure to pick this. We can get it through Amazon or through local bookstores or through y'all's
Barnes and
site. Or
Noble.
Yep. H. Ralton magazine is a locksmith. He's the second oldest locksmith in the country. They also carry the book.
Wow.
They're in the book. Yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Locks and books.
Locks and books. That's funny.
I fell in love with the city all over again is basically how it goes. I grew up in New Orleans, born and raised in New Orleans, and Angela's from Wisconsin. And so in my showing her around, I fell in love with the city completely, and I realized I didn't know anything. I found that the people that live in a particular place know the least about the places that are in their own backyard. 'Cause why would you hire a tour guide to take you places you already know, right? Why would I hire a tour guide to take me to go eat? I already know this stuff. I live here. But then I took a tour, and I realized how much I didn't know, and I was blown away. The first tour I ever took was a cocktail history tour of the French Quarter.
Wow.
And it was the most amazing thing. I ended up taking the same tour 8 more times by myself because I was so inspired. And so now I give cocktail history tours and food tours. Angela, though, comes from Wisconsin and has a different experience of the whole
That's
thing.
right. That's right. I was sent here on a business trip.
Uh-huh.
And I'm one of those stories where pretty much never left. Well, that's not true. I did have to go back and turn in my notice, but moved here, and during that business trip, I realized I had to learn more. Why do you eat these certain things? Why do you celebrate Mardi Gras and nobody else does? Why is New Orleans a muse to so many people, including myself? The people were so friendly. And did I mention the food?
Oh, well, there you go. That's another whole show that you could be done just on the food and would probably be one of my favorites, the cocktail tour. Yep. That would be good. But, everybody always says it, and until you experience it, you don't really know how much that the words means. Like New Orleans just gets in your heart and it kind of just takes over you.
It really does.
And you can go anywhere. But once you've been here and you've really experienced all that New Orleans has to offer, there's no other place like it. I mean, nowhere.
You're absolutely
really
right.
isn't.
This is research from my food tours right here.
Same.
We've had guests actually show up, take a tour with us, and move here. It's happened.
Yeah, it's a muse to a lot of people because, you have so many artists. I think that a lot of people come here that if they don't live here, they probably have a home here or they visit like once a year or so to get rejuvenated, just to get all that creativity and just the essence of New Orleans back in their hearts and just, kind of like, okay, I'm good for another year.
I always say the third time you visit, they say the first time you see Bourbon Street, you think that's New Orleans. The second time, you get off of Bourbon Street and realize the French Quarter is amazing. Right. The third time, you get out of the French Quarter and realize the real meat of New Orleans is outside and seeing who the real people are. And the fourth time, you come with your real estate agent is basically how that happens.
Because, like when you think about the Marigny Bywater area, it's really taken off, from where, when I had first moved here till now. I mean, it's like, you have like the Always Lounge, which I love that, and just so many different wonderful places to eat. Arabella's,
Elizabeth's.
Oh, Elizabeth's, just so many different. I call them like little pearls or something that a lot of people don't know locals do, but maybe not everybody, that's coming into the city knows about. But once you do your research and you find out, I mean, you're set.
Yeah, and one trip's not going to do it.
No,
Yeah,
no.
you got to come multiple times to come see it. So.
Right. So, what would be your favorite place of all?
Gosh, I've got so many, but I'll tell you, I've had a perfect moment at Hot Tin in the Pontchartrain Hotel, overlooking the whole city and having a Moscow Mule. I think is one of the most.
You like Moscow mules too?
Of course, I like everything.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Have you had the peach one?
I've not had a peach one, no.
I had one in Memphis.
Oh,
Oh my God, y'all! At the Peabody with the little ducks, and they put a little duck in it, and I was like, sold there. I was like,
sounds familiar.
Right.
So that's one of my favorite places. Another one on my tour that I always talk about is the Bulldog on Magazine in
Yes.
front of that amazing fountain. I have, it's dog friendly. You got a picture. You're under the beautiful tree, and you've got the TV and the pitcher of beer. And it's just perfect. It's a perfect place.
Yeah.
What would you say is one of your favorite places?
Sure. One of my favorite places, and I try to put it on every bus tour and corporate tour agenda I can, is the Sculpture Garden in City Park. It's so beautiful. It's so peaceful. Again, you talk about inspiring, and it's one of those places that people just don't know to ask because no one knows it's there when you're just visiting the city. But truly one of the local gems, and then of course you have Cafe Du Monde right around the corner.
It's my favorite Cafe
Yeah.
Du Monde in the city. Actually, the one that's in City Park.
Yeah.
Is your favorite?
Like of the Cafe Du Monde,
okay.
like that's my favorite one. Is the one in City Park. I recommend that one to people all the time when they ask about where to get like the best beignets, and it's like that's my little secret for it. Is that it's like it is Cafe Du Monde in my opinion, but it's not the typical one. It's you got to go to City Park and find that bigger venue, and plus you get to be in City Park, which is really cool.
Which, right, is wonderful. So what is, besides Cafe Du Monde, what is your favorite place to?
Like probably the biggest favorite, honestly, is I just because I love the history of it so much. Is just walking around the French Quarter and the Marigny as well. Like being able to just sort of walk and not just walk around 19th century buildings, but like as I've put to people in the past, I love that I can go into a building that I can verifiably prove dates back to the 1840s, and that is just my neighborhood bar where like a bunch of people are just hanging out after work. Like I love that. It to me it encapsulates one of my favorite things about the city also as someone from here, which is that we live within our history like that. Like a lot of places will go ahead and the way I put it is a lot of places will enshrine their history, but New Orleans, as having traveled around a bit, New Orleans at least as far as the US goes, feels like one of the only cities that really lives in that history, and you feel that connection to the past as you're going about in it.
Now let me ask y'all something. Have y'all ever had a paranormal experience while on a tour?
Actually, I've had a few, but one, I was in Antoine's restaurant, and we used to go in there giving a cocktail tour. And there was some of the back rooms there. There's one spot in particular. It's called the 1840s room, and that's where I would talk about the family. Antoine Elsator and all the things they invented there, like Oysters Rockefeller. There was a lady that kind of was wandering away from me starting down the hallway. Now, if you've been in Antoine's, it's the hallway that leads to the dungeon, and it's the one with all the ashtrays in it. And I'm thinking, I'm responsible for this person. Hey, I need you to come back by me. But as we were starting to cross the threshold then with the group, she kind of pulls me aside and she said, is this haunted? I gave her the standard, it's New Orleans, every place is haunted answer. And she said, oh, okay, because I feel a male presence walking back and forth up there and he's wearing a uniform. I was like, oh, well, that's kind of creepy. Okay. And we continued on out. And that place, the reason it's called the dungeon is because it was a prison at a few different times in the building's history. One during the Spanish occupation and ownership, and then another during when the Union soldiers had occupation of the city. So about a year goes by, and I'm in the 1840s room on a different cocktail tour, and I'm telling about Antoine Elsator and the invention of Oysters Rockefeller. And another woman kind of wanders away from me and starts walking down the hall. And I said, I'm sorry, you need to stay with me. We'll be going this way in just a moment. She says, okay. So then, as we're ready to lead, she didn't want to go down there. and she was very kind of hesitant by the doorway. And I asked her, "Is everything okay?" And she said, there's definitely a man walking back and forth up
Wow.
there wearing a uniform. I just need a second. I was like, okay, now the hair on my arms is standing up, you know. So I can't explain that. These two totally different women did not know each other over a year apart, and
Wow.
they had the same experience.
And if any place is haunted, it would be Antoine's, for real.
Yeah.
How about you, Mark?
Gosh, the first one I could think of is I remember we were in Arno's, the other restaurant that you would think of, right?
Right.
We were in Arno's and we were walking around. We'd gone to see the dresses upstairs and we went into this other private dining area. We were just looking around. There was no one in the place. It was with you and James and Ruby and myself. And everyone's kind of looking at me and I see someone run by the doorway. And I'm like, did you see that? And someone had mentioned, oh, I thought I saw something, but there was no one in this building at all, nothing. And it was almost like a shadow ran by, and that's all. And so, like, I hightailed it out, and that was the end of the story right there. I said, I don't know what happened, I don't know who it was, I don't know what's going on, but there was just something walked by that door, but there was no one in the building at the time. Well, I don't know about the whole building, but that area, because it was silent. I didn't hear anything. I just
There
saw
they
it.
were.
Yeah, just for a second.
Wow.
That's all I ever saw.
How about you?
I've definitely had a few experiences outside of like giving a tour context, but on a tour I've definitely had guests, especially along the ghost tour, go ahead and very similar to that, sort of feel things within like the given space to it. Obviously, the Lollery Mansion is going to be a big one where people who have any level of sensitivity are going to go ahead and pick up on that. But even talking about, there's a slew of hotels that used to be orphanages in the French Quarter, and people will very often, when I'm talking about them on the tour, they'll, or sometimes even as we're getting close to it, and I'll even start talking about it, haven't even gotten to the point yet, and people will ask, like, is this something about children? Because they'll, like, sense that sort of more, like, playful energy to a place, sort of thing like that. And so that's been sort of my experience with it, outside of then also getting a few like photographs from guests where there's like, and where there's actually sort of something to them, is largely them picking up on different aspects of that energy and that sort of thing there.
Your tour is called New Orleans Secrets. Mm-hmm. All right. So is there anything else that maybe you could tell me about a secret or something? And I won't tell anybody. It's just between
just
us.
for us. Yeah.
Just us.
We could tell her the secret of our new experience.
I was just about to recommend that one,
It's
actually.
exclusive.
I was like, I don't know. I was about to be. I don't know how
It's
much
just
I'm
us
allowed
here.
to say.
It's
But,
breaking news.
Right.
It's not.
It's an
public
exclusive.
Yeah. So this is going to be a tour that kind of hits on all of the paranormal of the French Quarter. We're going to actually go inside of a couple of buildings, and they are documented haunted, and we have proof in terms of video footage and audio recordings. We'll go over those. We'll go into the rooms where it happened. We'll also hit the street and talk about a couple of other buildings in the French Quarter, and then go to another haunted building, and then the end of it will finish at this was a business called Medusa's
Medusa's Lair.
We'll have a tarot reading, and they get to encounter who their spirit animal is, which is actually really, really amazing.
Nice.
Yeah, it was an amazing moment when we did it the first time as a tester to see how it was going to all work out, and we're very excited for it.
Yes, we learned who our spirit guides were.
Yeah.
That came in the room with us. Medusa's Lair has some very talented mediums and intuitives. So we all each learned about our personal spirit guides, and we did a tarot pull. The intuitive helped us interpret that. And then what Mark is referring to was actually a hands-on activity. We learned how to read our own tea leaves, and in doing so,
cool.
discovered our personal spirit animal.
So what's your animal?
The rooster, of all things. I've got a picture of it. I could show it to you.
Cock-a-doodle-doo.
But if you saw the picture, I'll even show it to you. I've got it right here.
Oh, that's so
While
cool.
he's pulling that out.
Right.
well,
What's yours?
Well, I was actually gonna. So mine was also poultry related. Mine was the ostrich. But what I was
Ostrich.
fierce runners.
Well, mine will eat both of yours for breakfast.
Like fierce
Whoa.
runners, very dangerous claws. But what I was going to point out is to also, do my little job here of also the promoting of that experience tour. Is like what you'll notice is even my personal stories tend to be more from being in places, and you'll notice they're like two really great stories were even from other guests seeing stuff or them seeing stuff was also being in the places. And so it's like, yeah, that's something I'm really looking forward to about it, and that I think is going to be really cool about offering this as like an experience you can take, is that like it's not impossible to have a paranormal experience in New Orleans on like the street itself, but when you're able to actually go into the places and kind of stand within that energy, there's something so much more tangible, for lack of a better word, about it. And so I'm really looking forward to doing that with people.
So where can we go to when is this going to be kicked off, and where can someone go to sign up for this tour and get this started? It sounds great.
Well, it will be on our website.
Okay, there you go. Which is
nosecretstours.com.
All right.
We'll start running it here within, I would say, the next 2 weeks. We'll
Nice.
definitely be able to go online and start signing up for it.
We max
and
all
then
of our
in
tours out with just
June-
9 people. Just a heads up. It's always extra small. So
Yeah, it'll be nice, a very intimate experience.
So everybody, please go to Amazon or to the second oldest lock place, and it's in New Orleans. You can get the book. You can also go on their website and get this book called Secret New Orleans, A Guide to the Weird, Wonderful, and Obscure. And you will also be able to book this wonderful tour, which me and Brandon would love to be on, hint, hint, but it'd like to go and check it out. So many things that you can do. Find out more about New Orleans. I mean, they'll be doing other things that maybe not other tour companies, just, like the same thing. I mean, like I said, we all know Marie Laveau. We all know this, Lolari, this. But there's so much more of New Orleans just to see and to learn about than just those two things. So I really appreciate what y'all do for the city, like to bring everything out, not just one or two things. So I do thank y'all for that.
thank you. It's our home.
Thank you.
Right.
We love it. We love our city.
We like sharing our city with other people.
There it is. That's exactly
As long
right.
as we have a drink and good food, we don't care.
And that's why we do food tours.
Right? Oh, there we go.
That goes a long, long way.
Oh, yeah. And I hope y'all will join us again soon.
I would
We will. Thank you
you.
so much for having us.
Oh, no
really
problem.
enjoy that.
Yeah.
Especially you ever do that episode on the upstairs lounge. Consider giving me a call.
I
I'd love to be a
will.
part of that.
I will. I love it. So everybody, like I said, be sure to check out New Orleans Secrets, the tour. They got wonderful tours, books, everything. And you know what? If you haven't yet, please go and subscribe to the channel. It's real easy. It's free. Just hit that subscribe button and also get the notifications. And I would appreciate it so much. And until next week, I'll see you then. Have a good night.